Okay guys, so we're going to start off with number 2, just to remind you that we're writing it in radical form, and so the 2x would go inside the radical, and then our 2 here would be part of the root, which we don't actually have to write because it's implied with the square root, and then we cube it. Okay? Number 5. If we simplify this, we have the square root of 36, which gives us 6. Okay? So you do the same thing for 7 and 8 as well. We will go over these real quick. So let's go ahead and start with 7. And so if we break it down and just divide 392 by 2, we get the square root of 2 times 196, and then we have x cubed, so I'm going to write those out like this because we're looking for groups of 2. Okay, and so I'm going to break 196 down, and it's going to go to a 98. Okay, I'm going to break 98 down, which is going to give me 2 and 49, and when I break 49 down, I'm going to have 7 times 7. Okay, so if I'm looking at groups of 2, I have a group of 7, so I'm going to take a 7 out. I have a group of 2, so I'm also going to take a 2 out. I have a group of 2 of the 3, right, of x, so I'm going to take an x out. And so what's left in the radical, right, I've dealt with that, is going to be 2x. And so when we multiply these together, we get 14x root 2x. Okay, so for number 8, we're looking for groups of 3. And if I break that down, 48, I will have 8 and 6, and then x, 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 right? 5 x's. Okay, if I group those together, I have one group of 3. And if I continue to break 8 down, I have 4 and 2, and then 2 and 2. So if I'm grouping, I have a group of 3 here, so I know I'm going to have a 2 on the outside for sure. Like I already said, I have a group of 3 x's, so I'm going to have an x here. What's left is 6 and x squared, and so I'm going to have the cubed root of 6x squared. And that would be our answer. Okay, and so moving on, let's go ahead and look at number 10. And so if I recognize that these are both the cubed root, right, I can divide. Well, 30 divided by 15 is 2, and so I'm going to have cubed root of 2. And that will be my answer. Okay, I could do it another way too. I could say, okay, 30 to the 1/3, if I put it in exponential form, 15 to the 1/3. Okay, I'm going to have 1/3, and I divide, and I get 2 to the 1/3, which gives me the cubed root of 2. Okay, same answer, just different ways of doing it. Okay, if we look at number 12, okay guys, so if we continue on, we're going to go to problem number 13. And so if I look at 13 here, I have 3x to the 3/2 plus x to the 1/2. Okay, so 3 times 1 gives me 3. And then if I take my exponents and I add them together, I get 4 over 2, which gives me 2. So I have 3x squared. Alright guys, so we're going to do 18. Okay, so the first thing we need to recognize is that we have a square root. And so we're actually going to square both sides. And so we have r squared equals, well, when we square the square root, those cancel. And we have 9r. We're going to subtract 9r from both sides, and so we have r squared minus 9r equals 0. Okay, Okay, and then we pull out an r, so we have r minus 9 equals 0. And we set both equal to 0, r equals 0, and r minus 9 equals 0, which we get r equals 9. Okay, we do have to check and make sure that both work. And so when we check, we're plugging both in. So we have 0 equals the square root of 9 times 0. So 0 equals 0. That works. That's for sure an answer. We include that. When we plug 9 in, we have 9 equals the square root of 9 times 9, which gives us the square root of 81, which gives us 9. So 9 equals 9, and that also works. Okay, so both are included. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at 19, which would actually be your 17. Okay, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to square both sides. So we have 3x minus 5, right, because when we square it, it cancels the square root, equals x minus 3 squared, so x minus 3. Okay, now I'm going to distribute, and I have x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. And so I get x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals, I'm going to bring this down, so 3x minus 5. And then I'm going to move everything here over. So minus 3x plus 5 minus 3x plus 5. And so we get 0 equals x squared minus 9x plus 14. And now I'm going to factor. Okay, so if I factor this, I have 0 equals x and x. What goes into 14? 7 and 2. And I'm going to have negative and negative. Okay, if I come back up here, sorry guys, I'm just running out of room. I have x minus 7 equals 0 and x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, if I solve, I get x equals 7 and x equals 2. And so now I have to check. Okay, I'm going to scribble that out. I don't want that to distract you. Okay, so if I check, I have the square root of 3 times 7 minus 5 equals 7 minus 3. Well, 7 minus 3 is going to be 4. And then 7 times 3 is 21 minus 5 is going to be 16. So the square root of 16, well, 4 does indeed equal 4. And so we know that 7 works. Okay, and now we're going to check 2. And so I have the square root of 3 times 2 minus 5 equals 2 minus 3. So I get negative 1 here. I get 5 minus 5, which is 0, or 6 minus 5, sorry, wow, 6 minus 5, which is 1. The square root of 1 is 1, so 1 does not equal negative 1, and so we aren't going to include x equals 2. And so our primary answer, or our answer is going to be 7. Okay? So let's go ahead and do 22, which is your 20. Okay? So the first thing you need to recognize is that if I rewrote this, it's just the square root of 2 minus x equals the square root of 2x minus 1. And so in order to get rid of the square root, I square both sides. Okay. So I end up with 2 minus x equals 2x minus 1. Okay. If I add 1 to both sides, I get 3 minus x equals 2x. That cancels. If I add x, I get 3 equals 3x. So x equals 1. Okay? I do need to check. And so 2 minus 1 to the 1/2 equals 2 times 1 minus 1 to the 1/2. So 1 to the 1/2, or the square root of 1, is 1. I have the same thing here, right? To the 1/2 gives me 1. So like I said, 1 works. Okay, and this will be our answer. We will include this. Hope this helps, guys. If not, come into tutoring tomorrow morning.